Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. George, co-owner of the Ology Group, Jason, the founder, the OG of the Ology, and Danny, head of SEO. I got you in here today because I specifically wanted to talk to you about where M-Flux began and the origins and take you back, Jace, to that meeting where we were in Derby till 3 in the morning in the office trying to sketch out a new product for various different reasons. So it's useful for people to understand why we've got a formula, the reasons for it, and the benefits of using a formula, and why we've updated it recently to V2, and obviously what those changes are and how it impacts the market. So, do you remember
Cool.
it? Do you remember the meeting?
Yeah, one at a time. I think really the we were looking at our database at the time as a small agency, and we were kind of thinking, well, obviously we were getting rejections as a company. UK Linkology is always attracted a kind of a higher quality client, someone that's got, they're investing good money into their link profiles. They're looking for good sites. Even back then, those kind of people did exist. And
Vicky.
we were just struggling a bit with our database. Do you remember?
Yeah, I
We got
mean,
quite a lot of rejections, and I was looking at the sites and thinking to myself, there's nothing wrong with a lot of these sites, And I was looking at it and thinking, well, they're getting rejected based on DA. There wasn't really DR around at the time. That wasn't popular. So the problem we had was, look, how can we not just squeeze more value out of the database, but how can we service our clients better by providing them sites that are assessed properly? And I think that was the kind of, the initial problem was what brought us into the room. The concept was something that I'd been thinking about in terms of, the metrics and the whole DA thing and everything. I'd always had a bit of a problem with that. And we got in a room, we thought, right, what can we actually do? So we spent literally, I remember we spent hours in a room looking at the data set and kind of wondering how we could shift the ranges around and what metrics we ought to use. And it kind of just
Yourself
fell out
away,
of that,
didn't
really,
we?
George.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the straw that broke the camel's back was an iGaming inquiry that we had. I remember we were kind of getting to the point where people were asking for more and more checks, and like you said, it's understandable. People that come to us want high quality. You kind of said
Mm.
it in a number of different ways. We got picky customers, right? So people that want to screen everything carefully, and actually, the reason to use an agency is to save time. And people were coming to us with 35, 40 line items on a checklist, and it's wasting everyone's time. And ultimately all they wanted to do was to make sure they won't waste their money or doing anything that was going to harm their website, and be able to answer to management above that they've done their job properly in terms of screening the sites. And if that brief that we had through from the iGaming client, it was like 40 points long. It looked at things like content above the fold, colors used. It was just nonsense, wasn't it? A lot of it. And the flip side is that a lot of customers were rejecting sites that were maybe 1 or 2 DA points below their target threshold, that were like hyper relevant, brilliant links, all the potential to grow, but they
Yeah.
wanted a site that serviced 35 niches just because it was a good DR or a good DA. It was silly, wasn't it? People were
Yeah, it was
wasting
mad.
money.
I think the thing is as well, it's kind of funny. I made a rod for our backs forever, basically, so you can thank me for it. But I started out a long time ago, in 2008-ish or whatever, and I was extremely white hat. Brooks did marketing, my original company. If you go back and look at any of the videos that I've done or whatever, I mean, some of it's still relevant now. I was just so white hat, it was untrue. But over time, I realised that I needed to kind of broaden my horizons a bit. I started working with some partners to try and deliver links. And because of the way I was putting myself across and the clients that I was bringing through the door, these delivery partners, some of which are around now, it's still now, and I'm not going to name any names, the sites were just getting rejected out of hand, and I just didn't really know what to do. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously the business evolved. I continued to get clients in, continued to deliver these difficult campaigns, but we did get to the point, didn't we, where it was starting to get really tricky, and we needed to look at why people were rejecting, what this whole one metric thing was all about, and
Mm.
try and kind of a massive problem for us to kind of re-educate the market. Out of a small office with kind of 8 people, and this idea about a formula, but between us. And obviously Rachel involved as well. We came up with something, and you kind of work your sales magic, and we are today.
People got it. They understood it. And the
Yeah.
thing is, when we present them with the formula, we don't redact the data, do we? So it's like we give them all the scores from metric, from things like Majestic and SEMrush and Ahrefs. They can see all the information on our scoring, so they can kind of put it into context, can't they? So what
Yeah.
about when we actually engaged with the university mathematicians and the students to actually build out the formula? That was cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I mean, this is where I remember we were kind of sitting there and going, how do you put a formula together? What's going to be acceptable? I wasn't great at maths at school, but maths there's different levels of maths, right? You can pass your GCSE, and then there's like, kind of like Spearman correlations and all that kind of stuff that they were doing at Moz at the time. So I was kind of a bit nervous, which is why, we said we got a guy actually, Danny, out of Sheffield, which is your neck of the
Yeah,
woods.
good guy.
Yeah, smart guy from another smart guy from Sheffield. Put this guy in, and he was a student. And I said to him, do you want to get involved? We're going to do something that's going to be kind of, we're taking a chance. We're trying to move away from, a standard metric and trying to introduce something new to our customers.
Loads of variables, loads of testing. We wanted something that would stand up to the market and would genuinely help, didn't we? And also M-Flux stands for Metric-Fluidity, so it has the ability to change. Like when things like Moz updated to 2.0, we were able to rescore the system. If there's anything catastrophic with one of the tools, we could bring in something else instead to replace it. And we could look at how publishers' traffic trends and their visibility changes over the time. And if one drops off, we can look at rescoring their numbers to make sure that it's still fair in terms of the database. So do you want to walk through what the old school M-Flux used to include, and then Danny can jump in and talk about the refresh?
Yeah. Well, obviously, just to round up what you were saying there, the idea of the metrics fluidity was like because you get different clients that value different things at the time. The idea was that we would almost with sliders, shift traffic or shift DA or trust flow in whichever direction a customer wanted us to do, and then set the metrics for them. That was probably an overcomplication at the time, and we didn't have to do that. But it's a good premise for a software. The original formula consisted of SEMrush organic traffic, keyword visibility from SEMrush, DA, and trust flow. I'm not sure if we introduced DR a bit later on, to be fair. I think we did that. I think we took some of the weighting away from DA and added DR in at a point where clients were asking for DR. So that's kind of where it was. It seems a bit of a blunt tool, but it was basically covering off at the time what we felt was important, which was obviously traffic metrics, which show engagement. And then there's the domain level metrics. So Moz, DA, DR. Trust flow is a metric which aligns really nicely with PageRank. If you know anything about that, not as popular as I think it ought to be, and the same for Dixon Jones's tools. I think that they're still absolutely spot on. I think they could have been a market leader. But anyway, that was the original M-Flux formula. Now
we've also got the in-house checks, haven't we?
I was going to say on top of that, at the time I think we had like a 22-point human check. Basically now. Going for 33 now. Yeah, looking for like usability, like interstitials, pop-ups and stuff, AdSense, PBN checks.
Inbound outbound link ratio, class A IP address, content quality,
all that kind of stuff. So we had that covered off, and that for us was a fairly robust setup at the time. Since then, obviously, there's been so many changes. We've used this formula on so many different clients, and we've got enough data to tell us that it's time to move forward. Especially with the leaks last year, we were going to do something anyway, and when the leaks came out, it kind of just confirmed to us that our thinking was right, and it was time to move on. So at this point, I'll switch to you, Danny, because obviously you've been keeping your eye on what was in that documentation. You've helped us to update M-Flux to version 2, and also M-Flux Plus product, which is a kind of a strategy product.
Yeah, you've been in the weeds, haven't you? All the masterminds, all the WhatsApp groups, all the testing. Yeah. You've been able to kind of like sense check everything that we've gone through, and it's really, really promising, isn't it?
I think so. So like Jason just outlined what M-Flux was there, and it was still a really good product when it came time to change. It was more of a fact that different things had started to become important, not just authority. It was time for it to take a backseat, really, as a metric. Our original M-Flux really did weight quite a lot towards it still. So we had to really pare that back. Now, what we actually did was we switched from DA to DR. So the primary authority metric within our M-Flux v2 is DR. Now, the reason for that is because it's purely link-based. It's a pure link quality score, and it's probably as good a one as you're going to get. So that's what we wanted. We didn't want DA, which has been gamed to death anyway, And you'll often notice that like DR scores are lower than DA and things like that because they're just not as easy to game. So we moved across to that. And then what the links also showed us is what we already started to know, which is how important topics like engagement and relevance were. Now, relevance is a real struggle to get in a metric, to use within a metric that you use on all sites, because relevance is different for all sites. So what we didn't want to
Perspective, isn't it? Everyone's individual perspective. All the time.
exactly, mate. And what we couldn't do really is have somebody come in that's got, say, 2 different businesses, and it costs him a whole lot more for one of his businesses and a whole lot less for his other, even though it's the exact same site. So what we went to instead was an engagement style metric. So what this aims to do is show that the site is in really good health. So, for example, engagement, how we use it is keywords in the top 20. And we combine that with total number of keywords. And what that spits out to us is a ratio of how many of those keywords are in the top 20. So if it has a high percentage, say if a website has got 2,000 keywords and 300 of them are in the top 20, that's not a bad ratio. And what that shows is Google actually values the site because it's ranking for more than just one bingo keyword that it managed to get from somewhere.
Celebrity net worth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's totally right. That's totally right. When you rely on just traffic alone, the problem what happens is sites can get skewed. You can have a site that Google ranks like for no reason really, and it gets to the top and it's a keyword that's in the hundreds of thousands a month, and that site looks like it's got really good traffic, and the problem is it doesn't, and it's set for a penalty, it's set to disappear, and we wanted to get through that. So along with our kind of more in-depth traffic metrics that we've put forward, which extends from M-Flux was quite arbitrary. It cut off at a shorter period. I think it was at 2,000 original M-Flux cut off, and you got a full traffic score. Well, right now instead it goes into the tens and the hundreds of thousands. So you get a much more complete traffic score. Sites that are doing a lot better get a much better weighting. So we did that, and that combines now with the keyword ratio to give a really complete score.
Also, like for people who still think traffic is obviously the most important thing, you just said that the thresholds have been changed. So actually, to get high M-Flux scores, those sites literally have to carry quite significant amounts of traffic. And then when you pair that with the spam checks that we're doing in-house anyway for things like traffic stability and source country of the traffic and the keywords that they're ranking for in line with the ratios that you mentioned, like you're getting a really solid set of sites.
That's the important one. The relevant, just to be clear, the relevant keywords in the top 20. You could have a news site that's ranking for some random keyword, like Danny says, it gets 100,000 searches and it completely skews everything. What you want, if it's relevant keywords in the top 20, it just means that when we load up a client that's related to those particular keywords, that content is potentially going to get better engagement, and engagement with nav boost equals better rankings. The links getting clicked as well. If you're getting a relevant target audience clicking on an article, clicking through on a relevant link, and then going to your site and hanging about, all them signals are pretty powerful, and you can get better, and you can convert better as well, obviously.
All that Chrome data they said they didn't take into consideration. What a surprise that was.
Absolutely. That is why kind of the ratio is so important, because the sites that have high amounts of keywords in the top 20 are triggering nav boost and are triggering relevance factors by the very fact that they're there, right? By the very fact that they are playing well to the Google algorithm. So that's why we like them.
The thing that for once link building actually has a chance of not only getting indexed properly, which is what everyone always checks, but that you might find that keywords on that page actually rank on the publisher, and real human beings actually find the page useful and link back to it. God forbid it works.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And I think it's also like important when we talk about all these metrics, as much as the rise and the good quality metrics and they make sites accessible for clients, they also work as a dampener. So if somebody comes to us and a site is failing for those, what we didn't want to do is serve them a site that would have been M-Flux 40 odd, when really it's not quite good enough. So just as much as it raises sites up, it brings them down as well. So this is why it's such a good quality metric for a client over DR and DA, which aren't really important. Traffic and engagement are important, and relevance is important. They're your North Stars, really. And our new M-Flux formula, it speaks to them, I believe, as well as a formula code that's on the market at the minute.
That's the thing. The thing is, all these metrics play a part, right? I mean, DR in itself, you can't pull down a metric like that. Ahrefs have done a good job with that metric, but like even those guys over there and Rand who's involved with, and Dr. Pete and whatever that are involved with the Moz DA have said themselves that in isolation these metrics aren't reliable. You can compare apples with apples, but you need to be bringing in other metrics. What I'm enjoying at the moment is a bit of a narrative. With other link builders, other link building agencies are pushing the same kind of story. Everyone's kind of getting a little bit sick of, trying to push links out to clients based on one or two metrics. And it's a basic analogy, but it's like trying to buy a car based on the colour of its paint or its tyres.
It's not because they're all trying to be really holy and legitimate and nice, is it? It's because clients are getting smarter and they want different expectations. Client wants results, and they're also seeing what other agencies are putting out there, and they have to be competitive. And we've been doing this for 7-8 years, haven't we?
That's right. Yeah. So and clients, like you said, are getting smart. It's a bit more about being more laser focused. Backlink profiles of businesses that have been around a while are starting to get huge. I mean, my son's 14. I wouldn't want to be an SEO in 20 years' time. Can you imagine the size of the backlink profiles and the domain authority, the overall domain authority some of these sites are going to have with Google? It's just going to be insane,
Still a popularity contest, but more based on...
It absolutely is, yeah.
And I think for people who, there's lots of information out there, like there's the Google leaks, there's like always Google updates, there's stories every day about SEO. But the thing about our M-Flux V2 is it ties in perfectly with the Google leaks, right? So that's actual information from Google. Right? It all ties in perfectly. Distance from seed sites, we've got trust flow. Engagement, we've got keyword ratios. Site authority, we've got DR. And obviously traffic, engagement, referring traffic, all those things, it perfectly ties in. So if you could distill a formula that's going to give you what a good link looks like, then I believe that this formula does that to a T.
That's scalable and easy and saves you time and allows you to get a decent
Nothing's
size
perfect.
link profile.
Yeah.
No, but it's significantly better than what's out there at the moment, isn't it?
I agree.
Yeah, totally. And it'd be interesting to see what other people come up with as well. We'll keep our eyes on what's going on in the market. Obviously, keep our eyes on our own test data, and we'll see. And the thing about Metrics-Fluidity is that it's flexible. That's the cool thing about it. So
yeah,
and V2 V3. Get ready for V3, Danny.
It's coming.
So guys, anyone watching this right now, we're going to post the link to the ebook, aren't we, after the video? So it'll be within the channel at the bottom. Link to an ebook. So Jason's working on an ebook which talks about V2, everything we've talked about in more detail. You can take your time to digest it. You can share it with anyone that you want to share it with. It'll all be in there. There may even be an offer attached to it where we can get you in the door, give you something to incentivize you. Maybe we could look at a link strategy. Whatever you need, we're there.